The fear of failure is legit.
Did that scare you at all?
I took action, but I didn't get the job.
Where do you draw the line between being bold, relentless, and stupid? Nicole, what's going on? Welcome to Dad Edge. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Larry. I'm doing great. How are you?
I feel very lucky to have you on today.
Same here.
That was a terrible dad
Ah,
joke.
do you know that just totally went over my head
Oh,
too?
it
I love
did.
it. Yeah.
My if my wife was in here right now, she'd be like, there he goes
Yeah.
again.
Here he goes again.
There he goes again with his jokes. So, well, I'm so excited to have you. I know we're going to be talking about a topic here I've never ever talked about, and in fact, you're actually combining really two things here that I'm really intrigued. One is science,
Hmm.
and one is more like what does the universe have to say, which I would call luck. And I didn't ever think that I honestly didn't think there would be a merger between these two conversations, but I'm really excited to have it.
Same here. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to it. It was an exciting topic that we did at a keynote recently, and I've just been kind of going on tour with this whole concept of the fact that there is a science to creating luck in your life. So it's been really well received. I hope your listeners love it.
Well, if they don't, I will. But I think they will. Before we get started, why don't you just tell us about yourself?
Sure. Well, born and raised out here in New Jersey, and I've been in the mortgage banking world for the last 15 years. Entrepreneur. I own a local construction company here in New Jersey as well, called New Jersey Construction. Started the Billion Dollar Banker podcast about 7 months ago, and on my podcasting journey, just in the infancy stages. I know you've been in it for a while. Absolutely loving it. Our mission's really to inspire and empower people. And so, as things have kind of progressed, we're doing a little bit of coaching, we're doing a little bit of training, and then obviously we're lending on the American dream. So anyone that's looking to finance a home, we're helping them as well.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
And so I always like to get just a little bit more of like your background and childhood and all that. Tell me more about how you grew up, and I would love to know just even the relationship, like maybe the impact your own dad had on you since it's a dad show.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I grew up out here in New Jersey. My parents were divorced when I was 5 years old. My father was an amazing father, amazing mother. I'm just very blessed. Came from a middle class, humble beginning. My parents are both from Brooklyn, New York, so we have like that Brooklyn energy coming through. But when they split, I ended up living with my mom down here in Brielle, New Jersey, which is a beautiful shore town. My father was in New York most of his life, so I really had this great like dichotomy growing up of seeing both the New York lifestyle, the diversity, the culture, the attitude, and just the kind of the entire just way of living out in the city, and then also this like small suburban beach town, little community with 5,000 people in it and one little elementary school. So really feel blessed how I grew up. I went here locally to a college called Monmouth University, graduated from there with a bachelor's in communication, radio, television. So it's been really fun to marry my love for business and my love for what I do for a living with podcasting and coming on and talking to people like yourself.
Okay, so you got to tell me, like, how does one make the jump from communications and broadcasting into mortgage and banking? And then, well, I know obviously how you got back into the broadcasting space now, but how did you make
Well,
that transition?
well, when you graduate in 2007, one of the worst employment markets there are, you
Right.
kind of have to make some tough decisions. So decided to it's a great question though, because I decided that I really wanted my path to be one that was limitless, one that I was the one going to be determining my own wealth and my own success level. And so that's really what landed me in a career, a commission only entrepreneurial style career that's really built around building relationships, making connections, and delivering on service. So, 15 years later, it served me well.
Did that scare you at all? Like commission only?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely did. I didn't necessarily start that way right from the beginning. A lot of people that get into the business, they start as maybe an administrative or processing type role where they'll like kind of learn the back end, the systems, and they'll support and help someone who's in that type of a role. And then once you get a little bit more comfortable, you just got to take that jump. So I think part of the speech today, right? Like it was the harder I worked, the luckier I was getting. And as long as I was following those kind of like the formula, so to speak, I was able to really create the success in my life that I needed. But there's a lot of ups and downs. You got to keep betting on yourself and taking risks and continuing to improve. But we made it through. It's I always tell people if you take that bet on yourself, it's going to be scary, but I don't think you're ever going to regret it.
Hmm. I can see that. I'm excited to have that conversation. Can I go back to your childhood for just a moment before we dive into the science of luck? Because you got me curious about something.
Sure.
So you mentioned your parents got divorced when you were 5.
Yes.
Okay. And by the way, if you don't want to talk about this, that's fine. And we
No,
can
that's
always,
fine.
yeah, we can always edit anything out. And you can always be like, hey, I'm not comfortable answering that question. But there's a reason I'm going to ask you this question. The question I
Mm,
have for you. So I've been in this space, with men for, the past 10 years, married
mm-hmm.
men working on their marriages, obviously dads, all that good stuff.
Right.
And I've worked with, I don't even know how many people at this point, but it's a ton. But normally what will happen, and to be honest, I wish it was a little different, but it's okay
Mm-hmm.
because it just is what it is, and this is unfortunately how the world usually works. I
Right.
usually, when a man hires me to help him,
Mm-hmm.
especially in a one-on-one situation, it's usually a crisis. It's usually
Right.
my house is on fire. I need help. What I
Right.
wish would really happen is a guy would get to me, or he would take action before there's a crisis. It's like more of this, hey, I need my oil changed, or I need to get my teeth cleaned before my teeth rot out type thing. But
Right.
that just doesn't
Maintenance.
happen. Maintenance. But this has come up countless times where a
Mm,
man is basically deciding, am I going to stay in this relationship or am I not? And
right.
it always comes down to, if I split up with my wife, it's going to absolutely destroy my children. And
Mm,
though I even had one client describe his situation as, and this is totally normal. I like, it just is what it
mm-hmm.
is. He just is like, I don't want my son to grow up in a broken home. I
Right.
kind of challenged him a little bit. And then before I share with you what I shared with him, you said something that was really, really remarkable to me. And that is, my parents got divorced when I was 5, but I had the
Mm-hmm.
best dad and I had the best mom. They were great.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, let's see. So look at that. A
Yeah.
lot of us have this preconceived notion, if we split up, we've destroyed everything. Like it's burned to
Mm.
the ground. We can never fix it. Your situation, it sounds like it didn't go that way. Can you share what you experienced?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that as long as you have two parents that are truly there for you, love you, support you, and you feel that unconditional love from them, that it all works out as it should. It really does. And I think sometimes two people are better apart than together. So I never wanted my parents to split. I didn't wasn't really fond of my stepfather growing up. I wanted my mom to be with my dad, and that was like a big thing for me in the beginning. But I think that ultimately, like the dichotomy of kind of getting experience of seeing two different ways of living, two different ways of being was actually really influential for me. I think a lot of people grow up in kind of like a bubble, right? It's like this is kind of all they know, it's their parents and the little community that they live in. And when you have the ability to your parents have the ability to kind of create these two separate lives, you get to I guess have more exposure almost. You get to learn more from each of them. And when I was with my dad, one of the things I always say, like I remember is like when we were together, it was just us. We were together, right? Like we got to go to the movies. We got to do all these fun things. We played basketball. It was just him and I, right? Even if it was just for that weekend, it was just us. And the day when I was with my mom, which was more often, but we were doing like day to day. I was going to school and then I would come home and she was working and she would go to dinner and I would still be home and doing my thing. And so it was almost like even though I didn't see my dad every day, the amount of quality time that we had was really substantially more than I think almost the quality time I was able to spend with my mom. So, you know, I think I think it would be great if people came for that maintenance part, but sometimes it's not right for people. And I think it's better for kids if, they're ultimately the parents can create a happier lifestyle for themselves.
I love that you said that because I think a lot of us, I mean, even me included, like, if I think about if my wife and I ever parted ways, the first thing I would think of, this destroys everything like that we built. Like my kids are literally doomed to have a terrible life because of this. And I don't think that's the case. I do think
Right.
some people are better off without each other. I do think a lot of differences can actually be solved if you work at it. But I really appreciate you sharing that perspective because I can't even tell you how many people in the audience right now probably need to hear exactly
Hmm.
what you just said. So thank you.
Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad
Yeah,
I
of
was able to share.
course. Yes. Thank you for sharing. So I am so curious. This science of luck. The first time that you and I talked, I was like, we were trying to, figure out a topic that we could bring you on the
Hmm.
podcast about. And you're like, well, I got this little thing. And I'm like, wait, you have what? I was like, this is super intriguing. So tell me about the science of luck. First of all, how did this even come about? Where did you hear about it?
Yeah, so I was asked to do a keynote for a women's conference here locally called it's the Jersey Shore Chamber puts on a women's conference every year. It's really about just kind of empowering women in business and helping us connect with each other. And I was asked to be the keynote speaker, and so I was very excited, and I was kind of putting on my thinking cap, trying to think about what would be a great topic that wasn't mortgage banking or business, but something that really could apply, that people could apply to any area of their life, right? As I'm thinking about what we're talking about now, it's people that are going through tough times, fathers specifically, let's say, that are looking to get divorced might be like, wow, like, I'm so unlucky. Look at all these people around me that have perfect marriages. Like, why did this happen to me? And or maybe it's something in regards to business. Maybe the relationship's great but businesses are struggling. And so I thought that this topic was something that was really all encompassing, because it's really about how luck isn't, it's not magic or coincidence, but it's really something that we can understand and harness. And I think when we look at luck in that way in our lives, we can create more opportunity, and in all areas.
Hmm. Can you give me an example of maybe even something personal in your own
Sure.
life?
I can give you, I'll give you this example, like just as a very like surface level. So let's
Sure.
say two people walk into a coffee shop, right? One person is sitting there, scrolling on their phone, sipping their coffee, while the other person is starting a conversation with a stranger, right? That person that started the conversation with a stranger wasn't necessarily more lucky, right? But they were more open to opportunity. And at the end of that discussion, that person was offered a job interview by the stranger next to her. And so by one of the parts of this formula, because luck has a formula, one of the aspects of it is opportunities. So there was this doctor called Dr. Richard Wiseman, and he conducted a 10-year study on luck. And what he found is that lucky people, they basically have a different perspective. They have a different way of behaving, and lucky people tend to be more open to new experiences. They trust their intuition. They notice opportunities that other people miss, and they tend to have like broader social networks. So they're putting themselves in these environments that are starting to harness luck to kind of come about and be a part of their lives.
Wow. First thing I thought about when you said that was my eyes are up and they know my surroundings. They're not buried in my phone, in my own
Mm-hmm.
thoughts or in somebody else's life.
Right. Right.
Right.
It's just being more open, being
Yeah.
aware of what's around you. Because one of the things we talk about in the keynote is that opportunity isn't always like this big flashing neon sign that comes flying down the street at you, and you notice it right away. It's sometimes it can be very subtle. It could be something. It could be a chance interaction with someone. It could be a job opportunity that opens up. It could be something that if you don't have the right mindset, you won't see.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
Is it too early to ask you like what this formula is?
No, no. So the luck formula is preparation plus opportunity plus bold action.
Okay. So preparation. I would love for you to just start wherever you want to start. So does
Yeah.
it start with preparation, I guess?
It does. It starts with doing the groundwork, right? Working on the skills, the knowledge, the behaviors, studying, training, practicing, whatever it may be that you need to do to work on yourself to be prepared. so that when that opportunity arises, you are ready for it. You have the right mindset, and you see it when it comes. But then when it's there, just preparation and opportunity alone are not going to create more luck for you. You have to then take bold and decisive action, right? So you think about, let's say you're training in your career for a long time. And actually, some of these examples that are really good is like, let's say, for example, J.K. Rowling, who was denied by 13 publishers
Right.
right before Harry Potter became one of the biggest books that exist, right? So she was prepared. She wrote an amazing book, and she went out and she saw the opportunity. She didn't let failure stop her, and she continued to take that bold action. Because one of the things about this formula is that you have to repeat it, right? You might be prepared, you might see the opportunity, you might take action, and then what happens is you fail. And the publisher says, "No, I'm sorry, we're not interested." So then you have to rinse and repeat that formula. And the more that you do that, the more that you believe in yourself, your capabilities, your ability to see opportunity and take action, the luckier you're going to continue to be in your life.
Hmm. What about, so I love that story of J.K. Rowling. In fact,
Mm.
my 11-year-old started writing a book called Always Get Back Up.
Oh,
And
I love
so like,
that.
yeah, it's just kind of like this book on resilience.
Hmm.
And he's like, where do we start with this? Because it was his idea. And I was like, that's a good question. I was like, let's research people who have always gotten back up, no matter what. Like
Hmm.
Michael Jordan and all the shots he's taken. And J.K. Rowling came up.
Hmm.
And I could not believe her story of how many times she was rejected. And I think even was it Colonel Sanders with the Kentucky Fried Chicken and was denied, I think over 100 times, was sleeping in the back of his car at one point.
Yeah.
And how can we touch on a topic that I don't know if it's involved with this, but I think it
Hmm.
could be, but I think it's
Sure.
there. The resilience factor. Like for
Hmm.
J.K. Rowling to be like, okay, no matter what, I've gotten all these no's, but I believe in this book. I'm just gonna keep going. Somebody's got to say yes. Like,
Hmm.
there's got to be like that resilience muscle that does somebody develop that over getting prepared, or does that something that needs to inherently be there?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because inherently, like, what makes you want to get up and prepare every day, right?
Right.
What's driving you to? And I think it starts with that belief in yourself, that belief that when you hear stories like this, you can even take it all the way back to Thomas Edison. We're
Right.
10,000 different ways to try to do something. He failed. His famous quote, right? As I didn't find the right way, but I found 10,000 ways not to do it. And
I love
he
that.
never gave up. Why did he want to solve this problem of electricity so bad? There's something that has to intrinsically drive you. But I think kind of like knowing that it's possible that I can do it is a big part of it, because I think people hesitate. They say that 80% of people miss opportunities in their life because they hesitate. Like, how many people do you know that have had a great business idea, or an amazing story to share, or should be doing something that that they're really passionate about, but they're not, because they hesitate. They hesitate to take that chance. And so you think of, there's so many examples, and I think those examples really help. I think that's why when people read books, a lot of times it references examples constantly to help kind of framework the concept of what people are discussing. So you got to have that motivation, and you got to know it's possible. Anything is possible. I think about, when you think about divorced parents, right? Like getting prepared to be single again, right? Like you're probably going to go to the gym and work out more, or maybe read some books. And now when that opportunity comes along to meet somebody new, you're going to see it because you believe in yourself. You've developed that muscle where you feel ready for that opportunity to meet someone. And that's what's going to help you to see it, because you've prepared. And then the hardest part is the action. I really think, because once you've done all that, it's like sometimes you walk up to someone and you reach out and you say, "Hey, I'm interested," or "You're beautiful," or "Would love to talk," or you apply for that job, and then you get turned down. And so I think that's where like the second level of resilience really comes in.
Yeah. It's because I always, yeah, I think about that. I don't know if you've seen that cartoon drawing of, it's like it's two guys and they're digging underground and they're digging for the diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
and one guy's on top, one guy's kind of on the bottom, and then one guy's right about ready to break through, and he's really excited. He's just going to keep going, and the other
Yep.
guy was about ready to break through, and he turned around and walked the other way.
Yeah.
So like that, yeah, I was curious about that because I think resilience and the tenacity, to keep going no matter what
Mm-hmm.
is something that I think we could all be better prepared for. So you said
Right.
preparation, and
Mm-hmm.
then opportunities was the next.
Yes.
Okay.
Preparation plus opportunity plus bold action is
Okay.
what's going to continue to create this environment in your life where you're going to harness more luck. If you think about, what's the difference between your current life and the life that you really want, right? What if that difference, that gap was just about creating the right conditions for luck to happen in your life? And I think if we all kind of look at it that way, like, wow, it's almost kind of like manifestation, right? Like if you're believing something's possible, it's getting you excited to work on it, and you're seeing the opportunity all around you as a result, and then you're not scared to take action because you believe it's possible, right? But I think that the life that we want to create is really on the other side of doing these things and reframing failure, getting out there and being open to opportunities, not hesitating to take action, making new connections, and really believing in yourself.
I think so. I think that's obvious. I think that's got to be like foundational, right? I mean, if you
Yeah,
don't have those things, I think this whole formula probably goes to hell in a handbag, doesn't it?
absolutely. I mean, if you think about, like, a great example is when of opportunity being kind of quiet is first of all, Jersey Mike's just sold. You have Jersey Mike's out there by you?
Yeah, right down the street from my house. Yeah.
Just sold to Blackstone for $7 billion. Jersey Mike's. So
So that's a big sub.
is that, yeah, is that unbelievable? But you think about, like, when I read that article today, I thought to myself, like, okay, like when this guy went out to, like, open up this sub sandwich shop, like how many people would have told him, like, why are you opening a sub shop? Like, there's sandwiches all over the place, right? Like, but he saw an opportunity, right? Like, he was prepared for something and he saw an opportunity and he took action, and he's got a $7 billion sale happening now. You think about the CEO of Starbucks. He was at a espresso bar in Italy when he sat there and he saw this opportunity. He said, "You know what? America doesn't have a coffee culture like Italy does." And he decided to open up Starbucks. And so we think about opportunity being subtle and disguised. I thought those were, like, just two amazing examples.
Yeah, that's good. Especially when I think you see a true gap, in the market.
Mm-hmm.
Dad Edge got started because I was a crappy dad, still make face plants every day on that one. But I was like, okay, I need to learn how to do this better. And I started looking. There was not a lot out there. There was a few books. There were hard. I don't even think there was a podcast at the time. And the books were kind of far and few between. And I didn't, I didn't start this because I'm like, oh, there's a gap in the market. I could do really well with it. It was more like, no, I need this. Like, I need to actually do this myself to figure this out. Um, Opportunity. I think we live. You said something, and you really painted this incredible picture of two different people in a coffee shop. One is in their phone and not
Mm-hmm.
even paying attention to the world. And I would call that opportunity, not even paying attention to what opportunities could be around. I'm
Right.
not saying like opportunities as it has to be monetary or it has to be like, oh, I'm going to go get what I want somewhere. It's just like it could be even like meeting a new friend,
Mm-hmm.
or the opportunity to just simply support somebody who needs support, or
Mm-hmm.
a conversation or someone to say, just to be like, hey, how's your day going today?
Right.
And I see a lot of people, and I'm sure you do too, just kind of in this sort of cell phone coma and the eyes are
Mm-hmm.
down, not up anymore. What do you think we're missing there?
Man, I think it's hard not to get caught up in the day to day. Someone used an analogy the other day that was on my show and said, it's like we're on this ship, and all the waves are coming at us, and we're kind of navigating through this crazy storm, and we're so focused on how to get through it that we really can't see what's around us. We don't really understand what's happening because all we're doing is just trying to dodge the next wave and dodge the next wave and make it through the storm. And sometimes life is like that. And I think that we need to recognize that. We need to pause and we need to go in. We need to be aware of what it is that we want in our life, what it is that makes us happy, what are we're capable of, and decide how we can kind of make some shifts. There's so many ways to do that. Like if you sat down today and said like, how can I be more present, right? How many podcasts and books can you listen to? It's like just like when you said, I want to be a better dad. How am I going to do that? And I think it's about pausing and recognizing those things. And the more, again, it's back to like the more that you stay open minded and you recognize like, I don't know everything. The more information I take in, the more people I meet, the more perspectives I hear, the more I'm going to understand how I can live the most, beautiful version of my life that is possible. And so it starts with that open-minded vigilance into your life and that awareness, I think that helps us.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So, can you give us some tactical way? I mean, obviously, we're talking about the person who's got their eyes like on their cell phone, not paying attention.
Right.
How might we pay even more attention, or what are different ways we could pay attention to those things even just better?
Yeah, I think that it starts by, again, it's like this sense of awareness, right? It's recognizing that opportunities are all around us, right? And then start by thinking right now, like you could think, if your listeners are hearing this right now, think of a time in your life where you've had like kind of like a random chance occurrence that led to something life changing. There's so many examples I'm sure that people can think of. And think back to like what was your mindset in that moment? What were you thinking about? How did that moment come about? Like was it really random, or was it that you were ready for it and you saw it? And when you saw it, there was like this moment of action that occurred that changed your life forever. And that could be, a lot of people think about their relationships, like oh my gosh, like I think about my parents. My parents met on a subway in Manhattan, and they kept kind of seeing each other and seeing each other. And if there wasn't that like open-minded perspective that like, hey, I'm prepared for this, like I think that person over there, like I'm catching that person's attention. I see them, like I'm aware they see me, and then to take action on it, I wouldn't be here today. So you think of like, is that really random, or was it that they kind of created this environment and they took action on creating something from it that changed their life forever, changed my life forever? So we all have those for instances. I think we need to dig in, and the more that we kind of recognize that, the more we'll create it and see it.
Hmm. As you say this, I had an experience with someone who works for me now
Mm-hmm.
and has become the most important, the most valuable person on my team, and that's my executive assistant. I
Mm-hmm.
met her in the gym that I work out at, and she it was
Nice.
a trainer there, and she I was at a place in my life where I gained a lot of weight. I had gotten pretty out of shape, and I've gone like usually about once a year I'll hire a trainer for anywhere from 30 to 90 days. I'm just like, just someone to make me do new stuff, kick my tail and go.
Mm-hmm.
So I really started looking around at the trainers, and she really stood out to me because I watched how she was with her clients.
Right.
She was always positive. She was never on her phone. She greeted her clients as they walked in. She did it in like this really happy way. Like Alice would come and be like, Alice, like just things like that. And like when she was like pushing these people and spotting these people, she wouldn't let them off the hook. She made them work hard, but she was so
Mm-hmm.
positive. And then I'd watch the other trainers and I'm like, they'd be on their phones and they wouldn't be paying attention. Like literally while someone's doing a set, like they'd be like checking their whatever on their phone. And I'm like, oh my God, like this. And so I went up to her one day and I'm like, hey, I was like, I'm looking for a trainer. I was like, I'd like to sit down and just, talk about packages, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I ended up hiring her, worked with
Mm-hmm.
her for a few months. That opportunity turned into her working for me now full time. And she's been working for me for 6.5 years. and she is by far, she is a savage,
Hmm.
and she's the only female female on my team, but she's an like my business doesn't run without her. And but I don't, that would have never have happened had, you know, you've been like really paying attention. Who's the right person in here? And it was a personal training thing for me to
Hmm.
go be a client versus her work for me, right? But it turned into that. It never would have happened though, I don't think, if I wouldn't have been paying attention. But
Yeah.
and that's really incredible. But so opportunities, I'd love to get to bold action, but I don't want to, you know, if we're not done talking about opportunities, I don't want to move on to bold action yet.
Yeah, no, I first of all, I think that was a phenomenal example of how, so you ever notice like how things sometimes just appear in your life at the right
Yeah.
time? Like it was funny, like the other day we were talking about you SEO optimization on YouTube, and I was like, you know what, that's a great idea. Like it just was a reminder that you said it to me, and I'm like, I need to really start thinking about how to do this too. And then, it's like, I'm gonna look into that. Like, so I just kind of created that like open-minded perspective. Like it needs to be something I go after because I'm talking to you, I'm preparing myself, I'm doing the groundwork. And then I get a message the other day that said, hey, like, do you need help with this? Right. And I was like, that's so interesting how things like that happen in life. But it's one of those things where I think for opportunity, it's really just it's a mindset game. It's just it's seeing things that most people can't see. Like they're saying, like see the invisible, do the impossible, right?
Mm,
And
I
so
love that.
yeah, that's how I see it. And I think if you're listening to a podcast like this, you're ready there because you're always learning, you're always trying to improve, you're trying to get better at what you do, you're trying to soak up as much information as possible. So you have that mindset already. And then it's just recognizing it when it appears. And so yeah, I think seizing the moment is the biggest piece because you don't want to do all that, get like 75% through it, and then just not take action, right?
So true.
So like for you, for example, not to interview you, but like what inspired you to actually take action on doing something like what you're doing today?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I would love to tell you that it wasn't fear based, but a lot of it was because I
Mm-hmm.
saw my life heading in a direction that if I didn't change something, it was not going to be a good thing. And plus,
Right.
but from a motivationary perspective, you know, and a more positive perspective, I I wanted to design a life where, you know, I was proud of the dad that I was. I was proud of the man that I was. And to be really honest, I was so sick and tired of guessing how to make that happen. Like I felt like, okay, well, that didn't work. Okay, well, maybe I'll try this. Oh, well, that didn't really work. Well, I'll try this. And it just was so frustrating. And as
Mm-hmm.
soon as I was just like, okay, what if I just sat down and learned? What would that be like? And then that's when things really started to change.
Mm-hmm. Groundwork, right? That
Yeah.
like you just decided to prepare.
Hmm.
I think it's phenomenal because there's a lot of people that wouldn't have gotten that far. And I think that's the difference between people that, walk around saying like, wow, I'm so lucky. I remember before I did the keynote, there were a couple people that came up to me and said like, oh my gosh, I have the worst luck ever, right? I'm so unlucky. I'm just, if I could like drive somewhere, get a flat tire, like lose something, like things always happen to me, right? And that's like the modality that they're walking around with. And it was funny because we had this conversation. I'm like, you can actually create your own luck. They're like, no, you can't. We have a great list of testimonials after of people that are like, wow, I see it different now. And that's why there's that quote, the harder you work, the luckier you get, and sometimes success comes from failures, right? This is your perfect example of, felt like you were failing at something. You needed to fix a problem, and it happened to be your own problem, right? But at the time, but usually people are always trying to fix somebody else's issue. So it's really interesting that your journey started so authentically like that. But you know, luck is cultivated through mindset, and if you make a decision in your life that you're going to do something, you can create it. And I don't know most of your listeners really where that will apply, but if they're going through something hard or difficult or challenging, whether it be with their children or with their spouses, I think they can really reframe that by believing that this formula, this preparation, this ability to look for opportunity, and then taking action, just keep having faith in that, and something great's going to happen.
Do you think that the opportunity piece of this is also based on the perspective of whatever action I'm going to take doesn't necessarily fall on my identity? Like, so like what I mean by that is
Hmm.
if I do this thing, whatever, like we'll just talk about data edge. Well, like, well, if I'm going to do this thing, if I'm going to start a blog and
Hmm.
it flops, like I remember clearly when I started that, I was like, if it fails, it fails. Whatever. I'll learn. I'm going to learn some things along the way. Like I know it will be worth it and valuable. I'm just going to do it. And if it fails, it wasn't because I failed. It's just because it just was what it was. And I
Right.
think going in with that perspective of I'm either going to win or I'm going to learn, one of the two, or
Hmm.
both. I could actually do both. Then it's going to be a better journey than I think a lot of people stop at the opportunities because they're terrified to fail because if they fail, well, then they're a failure. Is there any truth to that, do you think?
Yeah, I think that there's, they always say like there's these things that some people are scared of succeeding. Some people are scared of failing. Like the fear of failure is legit. It's one that I think it stops a lot of people from pursuing their passions. I mean, I made a joke at the keynote. I said like, imagine if the CEO of Starbucks was like, "No, America runs on Dunkin', we're not we don't drink Starbucks, right?" And I am more of a Dunkin' Donuts fan, but that's just like an East Coast thing, really, I think. But ultimately, it starts with you having believing that the process of succeeding requires you to fail. It does. I think there's this great quote. It's success is not final and failure is not fatal. And so I love that quote. I always think about
That's
like even when
awesome.
right? Because even when it comes to success, like you could succeed today. You could be so successful today. It's not it. It's not over. It's not like I've made it. I'm at the top of the mountain. Now I can just hang out. No, you have to keep climbing. It's not over. You have to keep working on it. And it's the same thing when you fail. It's not over. It's not fatal. You still have the opportunity actually to bounce back even stronger from those failures. Cause like you said,
Yeah.
you've learned.
Yeah. It's so good. So being prepared,
Mm-hmm.
being opportunistic, meaning paying
Right.
attention, right? Being a little bit resilient, being okay with taking risks, being okay with having a perspective. I'm going to learn, right? Or I'm going to win or I'm going to learn or both.
Mm-hmm.
Bold action. It's interesting that you use the adjective bold action because I guess for you, what's the difference between action and bold action? That's a dumb question, but in this formula, what would be the difference?
Yeah, I'd say that it's the best example I could use, let's say in business would be if you're, I recently had an opportunity to meet with Brian Serhant, who most people know, owning Manhattan, Netflix series, phenomenal realtor, one of the top agencies across the country. And, that opportunity was there and I took action and I had that first meeting, right? But what if my action just stopped there, right? Like there has to be this kind of forward momentum that you keep with the process of taking action. And so that first meeting was phenomenal, but we left with some action items. And this is someone that's very busy, right? So my follow-up attempts, kind of at times they went on unanswered for a little while. And I could have said, well, you know what? I met with him and he's busy and it's probably something that he's not interested in pursuing. But, I sent that second email and I sent that third email and then I sent that gift to his office. And then, I started meeting more people within that agency and I started, finding ways to connect the dots and say, hey, oh, I just met with so and so and, you know, uh, thought of you again and wanted to reconnect. And, sometimes it takes 5 to 12 follow-ups before you actually land that opportunity and it really becomes something. So another great example is when I was coming up in my career in mortgage banking, I worked for Wells Fargo for 13 years. I ran one of the biggest branches in the country ultimately at the end of my career with them. But the first time a managerial role opened up, I felt really prepared for it. And I was looking for the opportunity. I was waiting for it to come. And when it came, I took action, but I didn't get the job. I didn't get the job and I wanted it so bad, but I didn't get it. And then another maybe 6 months or a year passed and another opportunity opened up for a manager position and I applied for it again. And that right there, that's the bold action piece. That's the part where you say, you know what, it's like rinse repeat. I'm still going to do it. I'm going to go after it again. And then I landed the job and ultimately, ended up running one of the biggest branches in the country and had a very successful career. But if I had given up there and not continued to take that action, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. So, the message in bold action is like not to give up, and not to give up the first time or the second time or the third time, to realize that sometimes you have to go that extra mile to actually, you think about if J.K. Rowling stopped at the 10th publisher and was like, you know what, this book's crap. It's never going to take off. I'm done. Like, where would she be today in comparison to where she is right now? So,
It's unreal, isn't it? I mean, like even Steve Jobs' story, like
yeah.
started in his garage. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you would have looked at it on paper, it's
Yeah.
like, this will never be $1 billion company. It starts in somebody's garage, but that guy was relentless, right? Um,
Absolutely.
is there is there a is there where do you draw the line between being bold, relentless, and stupid? If
How
there is,
how would you define like stupid? Like, you
I would, so like for instance, I think about any like Thomas Edison, perfect
mm-hmm.
example, right?
Mm-hmm.
He he tried 10,000 ways to figure out electricity, light bulbs, and he's like, I figured out 10,000 ways not to do this.
Right.
I think a lot of us though will continue to do the same thing, expecting different results, or
Mm-hmm.
we'll
Good
tweak it
point.
just ever so slightly. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, oh, I'm not getting the results I want. Forget it. I'm not doing it anymore. Versus
Mm-hmm.
like maybe doing an after action review, understanding like, okay, this is working, this is not. How can I make what's not working work? How can I keep doing the things that are working, keep going? But I don't
Right.
think a lot of people take that time. They'll simply do that wash, rinse, repeat, but they'll never really change any of the ingredients along the way if they need to be
Yeah.
changed. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting as you ask these questions. There's like so much that's involved, right? It sounds simple, like, oh, just prepare and there's opportunity and then you just take action. But you're absolutely right. There are these there, I say to my sales team a lot that if you're not getting the results in your life that you're looking for, you're either not doing enough of what's required, or you're not doing what's required the right way, right? So like in sales as an example, 80% of sales happen on the fifth to 12th contact with somebody. So if you haven't gotten into that zone in general, like you only have a 20% chance of succeeding. So, that's just a kind of like a perfect example there. When you think about Thomas Edison, right? Every time he tried to create that electricity, he tried it a new way, right? So there definitely does have to be a moment where you say to yourself, okay, what I'm doing, if it's not working, I'm either not doing it right or I'm not doing it enough, right? And so the enough analogy is like, let's say you want to get in great shape, you can't just work out one day a week, right? You're not going to get the results. You're not doing it enough. You also can't work out 4 or 5 times a week for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. You're not doing it the right way, or you can't have the wrong form when you're doing it. You're gonna not get the results that you want. So you could be doing something a lot, doing it the wrong way. You got to pause. So that's where I think coaches come into play, right? That's why coaches exist. It's why you hire a trainer, because somebody else is subjectively looking at things and saying, hey, let's talk about what you're doing. Let's talk about your results, and let's figure out a plan that might help you get to where you want to go better, quicker. And I think that's why so many people have coaches, even some of the most successful people in the world.
I have to be honest, like when it comes to, I remember 10 years ago when I first hired my first coach, I was like, what in the world did I just do? I just joined a cult.
Yeah.
I can't believe I got to pay somebody to do it. But I'll tell you, when I
Mm-hmm.
did it, here's the funny thing though, for the last 10 years before that, I was gladly to hand over money to a therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's
Right.
like, oh, well, this person's got whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But coaches have definitely helped me the most. But I think you're right there because it's exactly that. The coach has number one experience and expertise in that field, but they also can view your life um, through through a camera angle that you can't see. Right? They
Mm-hmm.
see these things and they do it without the emotion in it. Like we're kind of tied to our we're not kind of we're tied to our stories of where we are, why we're there. But a coach has they don't care. Like, right.
Hmm.
They have no
Hmm.
emotional tie to where you're at. They're just going to tell you where you're at and what we can do about it. But let me ask you this: as far as let's speak to the man who or the men out there who are like, you know what, Nicole, I'm hearing everything that you're saying here. As far as like, I need to be prepared, but I'm not exactly sure what that could look like. And I need to be, looking for opportunities. I'm not exactly sure what that looks like. And then I got to get to bold, action, but I'm not sure what that looks like. If you were to give us some marching orders on like literally the simplest right next thing for a guy who's like scratching his head, being like, I understand everything you're saying. This sounds really, really good to me. I just don't know where to start. Where do we start?
A lot of coaching platforms will start with just doing a life assessment, right? And looking at kind of like the wheel of life and rating, where do you feel like you are on a scale of 1 to 10, physically, mentally, spiritually, just health in general, in your relationships, in your business. And I think that's a great place to start because you're taking inventory, right? And you get to say, because as I spoke to the coach the other day that said, a lot of the men I train, and he trains men too, it might be a good connection for you. He spoke about how a lot of them will have like everything going right over here and like nothing going right over here. And so a lot of times, like we're dialed in certain areas of our life. Our business is amazing, but like our relationships are struggling or our fitness is struggling. So I would really look at that wheel, that whole life assessment, and say, what areas need improvement. And then once you identify what those areas are, you create just like a simple plan. I wouldn't overthink what that looks like, but as an example, like if you want to get better within your relationships, maybe a simple goal is just like I want to read one book a month about love and relationships. I want to listen to one podcast every month. I want to find something that's really great to listen to. And I want to do one new experience in my relationship every month that I think can bring us closer. Just simple, three simple things. And I think a lot of times people get like a analysis paralysis, right? Where it's like, oh my gosh, like how am I going to tackle this? And I got to do that. And then I got to go to the gym. I got to, like, there's so many steps. And you're like, oh my gosh, forget it. I'm not going to do it. So keep it simple and just kind of take inventory and then decide maybe just the one or three things that you're going to do different in those areas, and you'll see significant change in your life. And don't overthink it. Just get started. I think that's the biggest things, because sometimes we'll look back and like 4 months have passed and we're like, I know I needed to do this and I haven't done it yet. And it's just because you're overthinking. So don't be your own worst enemy, and just get started, assess your life, and take those small steps forward.
What's really funny about the coaching thing? I think it
Mhm.
was, I've been trying to do like this whole physical. I've been doing a whole physical transformation for about the past 140 days. And I talked to my coach, and he and I, we like, he got me to a certain fitness level, which was pretty good, but I really
Right.
wanted to go more. And I literally went to him and I'm like, look, I'm doing these things. Like, just tell, like, what is the simplest thing I can do different? Just the simplest thing. He's like, this is easy. Cut out alcohol, get 12,000 steps a day. And, and when you do your resistance training, I want you to go to absolute mechanical failure and then do rest pause sets on every set. And he's like, you're not going to be able to do the same amount of sets because it's going to exhaust you. But those are three things I want you to do, and it will completely overhaul your body. I'm like, okay, I'll try it. Sure enough, those are the only three things that I really changed. And
Hmm.
that's what like completely set me on a new trajectory. But it was, it's like being open to those opportunities, taking the bold action, like you're saying, right? And like
Hmm.
it's, the results have been great. So,
I
it's
just did the
funny.
same thing. I did 120 days of no drinking, and
Yeah.
it was a similar reason, just to
Yeah.
kind of get clarity, get better physical fitness. And it is like, if you think about it, most of us are probably consuming about 2,000 calories and drinking a week if we're going out a few times a week, or socializing at all. But I think what you said there was really interesting. It reminded me of this another quote that says like it's it's simple, but it's not easy, right? And so
Yes.
like that sounds simple. Okay, we'll just walk every day. That's okay. All you have to do is walk, right? And like just don't drink alcohol. That's not that hard. All you have to do is just not drink something, and then just like change the way you're working out. You're working out anyway. Like that sounds so simple, but the reality is it's not easy. It's not easy to have the discipline to not drink when you're at an event where everyone's drinking. It's not easy to have the discipline to go walk when you couldn't get it in all day and now it's 9 o'clock at night and you have to get 12,000 steps in. So simple's not always easy,
Yeah.
but when you at least when you have a simple plan, you have something to work towards. So maybe you don't do 12,000 steps a day, but maybe you did 12,000 steps 3 days out of the week. And the next week it's a little more and it kind of starts taking you closer and closer to that target. And then the simple stuff eventually can become easy if you have the discipline to tackle it every day.
So true. I laugh because it's 20 after the hour, on my time, and I got 40 minutes to my next one-on-one client. And as soon as we're done here, like I think I was at 6,200 steps already today, and I'm like, man, I need 40 minutes to get
Yeah,
that
well,
last 6,000 in. So I'm
you have
gonna
to
go.
take this podcast on the road.
Yeah, right, right. But no, when we were done, I was gonna go get my 30, 40 minutes in, see if I could do it. But Nicole, this has been
There you go.
awesome. Do you have a
Thanks.
is your keynote on this? Is it online anywhere where guys can go check this out?
It is. Yeah, you can check out my YouTube
Okay.
channel. It's at Billion Dollar Banker. That's the basically my hashtag, my handle all over social on YouTube and beyond. And it's under the playlist for speaking engagements, and the entire speech is there. I would love for you guys to go listen to it. I hope it helps inspire you, and it's been a lot of fun being here, Larry. I'm so glad you had me on.
Me too. And then obviously your expertise, you're starting a podcast. So
Mhm.
that's gonna be that's live, correct now, right?
Yeah, if you're a Billion Dollar Banker YouTube, you'll see we have a full playlist. Season one, there's about 30 different episodes that are on there. We have some celebrities from HGTV, A&E, people that are in the real estate investing world, the construction world, a lot of great insight from people where you hear kind of a lot of the same stuff we've been talking about today. People that are taking chances on themselves, working hard to achieve their goals, and pivoting. One of the things I hear a lot from the people that I have on that have achieved a lot of success is like we said before, success is not final, right? There's times where you just have to completely pivot, and I think those things are great to hear too, because a lot of your listeners could be achieving great success in areas of their life, and then something changes and they have to redirect. And so there's a lot of great stuff to get. Hopefully, it can inspire you if you go check it out. And we're excited for next year, and we're excited to have you on too in January.
Can't wait. I cannot wait. I love what you're doing. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for this. And this was gold. You don't have to be a billion-dollar banker. You can be a man, husband, and father. And that formula for luck, double down on that all day long because that does work. So thank you for
Amen.
coming on today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And shout out to all the dads out there.
I appreciate that.
All
Yeah.
right.
We need some shout outs every now and again. So
That's it. We
yeah,
gotta make Father's Day well, I'm not gonna say great again, but we need to make it amazing, right? It's we always joke around like that. Father's Day is just not the same as Mother's Day, but you guys deserve it all. And this is such a great mission that you have here. And I'm excited to keep sharing it with people that I come across. And so you'll be hearing a lot more from me as I bump into other people. I think you'd be great. The more I can help you spread your mission and your word, I'd love to do that.
Oh, thank you, Nicole. I appreciate that. Guys, you won't have to look too far to connect with Nicole and her YouTube channel. Go check out this talk she does on the science of luck. We'll have it in the show notes for you. Head on over to thedadedge.com/505 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/505. By the way, one quick announcement before we head out of here today. You're going to hear a change on this Friday's podcast. I'm no longer going to be doing interviews on Fridays. I am going to be doing a segment. I can't wait for this. It's going to be called Fatherly Fumbles, Field Goals, and First Downs. It's all about just stories we're seeing in the community. It's lessons learned. It's wins. It's losses. It's all these different things and just reflections from me. So it's going to be a shorter show, 10 to 20 minutes, probably max, just recapping a few things. And then that way you guys can digest some of this material just a little bit more on the go. So again, Nicole, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. And I think that's a great idea. Don't say that 5 times fast, though, or maybe you could start by trying.
I need to
That might be
I need to
funny.
practice.
That's it. No, that's a great idea. I'm sure your listeners will love that. So thanks again, Larry. It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure. It was lovely meeting you, and we'll talk again soon.
You as well. Thank you.